Hello and welcome to the Open Country Craftsman channel. For today's project is axe restoration. I've had this axe for about 20 years and it's really loose and rusted and pitted and pretty much unusable because I was afraid the handle would, or the axe head would fly off the handle. I thought I could just take the hammer because it was so loose and remove the axe head from it, but that didn't exactly turn out the way I thought, so I had to use other means. So I took it to the saw, and I didn't get too close. I'm about an inch away from the axe head because I didn't want to accidentally hit it and ruin my blade. But I just made a nice clean cut and thought I could work it better from that smaller piece. So I took it over to the vise, and I don't know, I didn't really know how to get the wood piece out of there. So I decided to just clamp it in with the vise and use the handsaw. What I didn't think about at this point was the axe head is curved, so it caught quite a few times on the metal because I had it right against it, but with that curve kind of made it a little more difficult. So I decided to hit it with the hammer and remove half of the wood to give me a better angle. As you see, it's catching a little bit, which I should have come from the other angle. Would have been a little easier, but I was just in the thought process of keeping it going. Here's where I figured that out. A lot easier from that angle. Once I got it cut down, and yeah, you see a little bit of a marking on the axe head, but that doesn't matter because I'm going to take that out later anyway. So I just used a chisel to pound the wood out, and the whole idea was to get the wedge that was in there back out, because I wanted to keep that in case I needed to use it again, because the wedge that came with the axe handle I bought is a wooden one, and I'm not sure I wanted to use it. So the first step in restoring this axe head, I was going to run the wire brush over it and just remove any of the big stuff off the axe head. There's paint on it, there's rust. It didn't exactly take all of it off, but you can see there is a difference. It removes and starts the process of getting this back to a nicer finish. I worked on it quite a while with the wire brush, and as you see, I'm wearing a leather apron, which I would suggest doing that when you're using wire brush. I've actually had the needles come off and stick into me. I'm hitting it with the grinder now because I need to basically resurface it because there's so many dings and scratches and pits and just from over the years. And this is just going to make it back into a axe shape. And you probably can't see it real well in the video how much damage was on the axe head. Not that it was a tremendous amount, but I mean there were gouges in it, and I'm taking all that out with the grinder wheel. And the grinder was moving around because of the vibration. It was moving around the axe head quite a bit, and I have these pieces of wood to try and stabilize it, which later I cut the pieces of wood in an angle, and that helped a lot better. But I went over the whole axe, all sides, and resurfaced it all. Now when you're doing this, it creates a pattern that the wheel leaves, and they're pretty deep grooves even though the surface is smooth. So the next step was to use the flap wheel, which this was 120 grit sandpaper flap wheel that's taken it taking out the larger groove and really replacing it with a smaller, smoother groove. It's difficult to get a piece of steel to a mirror finish, but a semi-mirror finish is really what I'm going for. So the sandpaper is smoothing it out to a different pattern in a sense, and you can tell the difference. I mean, it's a lot smoother and shinier, and the pattern is more or less aggressive. You see the wood, I cut at an angle to hold that axe head better. And yes, there's a box elder bug crawling along. We have those this time of year all over the place. There's the pattern I'm talking about. It's not exactly smooth, but it's smoother than the grinding wheel left. So the next step is 220 grit sandpaper, and I just used my orbital sander, which basically left a smaller grooved pattern on the metal, which kind of sets me up for the next step of hand sanding. But at this point, I mean, it's pretty good for an axe. I wasn't going for a complete mirror finish like that would go on a vehicle or something. So the idea was just to make it look a lot nicer and a lot smoother, so that if it went through a wood to split a piece of wood, it would be smooth enough to continue through the wood without any problem or any catching or any resistance. So this is a 320 grit sanding block that I'm running over the pattern the orbital sander left, and it's smoothing it out pretty nice. Now if I was going to continue to wet sand all the way down to 1000 grit, that would have taken a lot longer, and like I said, I don't think it was necessary exactly for an axe head. My goal was to just get it reasonably pleasing to the eye and functional, and I think I accomplished that. So from the sanding block to the 320 grit, and I think one side is 400 grit, so maybe down to 400. I'm using the hard wheel side with the black compound to start the buffing process, and this kind of takes that pattern that we've gotten smaller and smaller and just kind of smooths out the edges, and that's what gives it that shine. It helps just refine anything, and like I said, this isn't going to be exactly mirror, but close enough for what I'm trying to do. And I went over this on the hard wheel side for maybe 3 or 4 passes. There's something very meditative about it, and yeah, you got to be careful if you catch there. I was pushing a little too hard. Keep a moderate pressure and just keep it moving. And it does get quite warm, so you got to wear gloves. The hard wheel side with the compound brought it to a pretty good smooth finish, but I wasn't going to stop there. I wanted to continue with the soft wheel side with the red compound, which is the lightest I have that I can go, and it just really finished out the smoothness, the reflectiveness that I wanted on this axe head. And my original plan was to actually stop at the after the orbital sanding and just paint it, or after the sanding with the block, and paint it like most axes are painted. But I really liked the finish so much that I just wanted to keep it a shiny finish. As you saw, that last compound left a lot of residue on it, so it took me a lot of elbow grease to get that back off of there, because it was pretty caked on. with these shop rags in, I don't know, 20 minutes of trying to remove that. I finally got a pretty good finish on it. And as you can see, as I move it around in the reflectiveness, you can see that it's not completely spectacularly a mirror, but it is pretty smooth, and I'm pretty happy with the way it looks. And I think that will complement the handle. The handle I purchased from Home Depot for $15. It's a hickory handle, and it was covered in a clear coat. I don't know if it was polyurethane or some type of shellac, and then there's these two stickers on it. For my purposes, I removed the stickers because I don't really like the way they look, and I don't like the clear coat also because when you're holding the axe with your bare hand, it feels kind of slick, like I don't know, I don't have a good grip on it. So I'm going to remove the clear coat, and I'm using the 220 grit to go over the hickory, which is a hardwood. That black gooey spot there is where the stickers were. That's the glue that was left over. I also noticed as I removed the material, the clear coat, it gummed up. So it was really difficult to get completely removed. And it took a lot of time to go over it back and forth to finally get all the clear coat removed. But once I got down to the natural wood, the natural hickory, it has a lot more character and a lot more beauty to it. So I was really pleased with this decision to take it back down to the natural wood. So on the next step, well, that's the 400 grit block, and sanding a hardwood like this it gets so smooth, and it's really worth the extra effort just to take it all the way down to 400 grit or even further if you want to. So the next step is to apply linseed oil, which will treat the wood and protect it, but also keep it at its natural color and beauty. So I decided to pour the linseed oil into a plastic container and use a foam, the cheap foam brush that you can get at the hardware store to apply it to the wood. The directions say to apply the oil and then wipe off the excess, which that's what I did. I gave it a really good first coat, pretty thick, and then wiped it off, and then I applied a second coat, which I don't show that in the video, but I did apply 2 coats, and I let the thick coat sit for a while. I originally was going to hang this, and that's what the wire is wrapped around the top part of the handle, and then I decided later that I didn't really need that. But see, I let it set for a while and really kind of soak into the wood, and then I wiped off the excess. It goes on really easy. I wore plastic gloves because if you've ever smelled linseed oil, it's not very pleasant. And I did that to keep it off of my hands. But it really turned out nice, and I think it looks better than the clear coat did. And it really gives it a nice feel, not a cheap plasticky feel. For the next step, I decided I needed to put the edge back on the axe head. So I'm using a stone and some honing oil to sharpen the blade back to, at least a decent sharpness. I did cut some newspaper with it, and I did not include that in this video, but it is pretty sharp, and it held the edge pretty good. I tried when I was grinding and sanding, I tried not to get too close to the edge as to ruin it or misshapen it. So I think I was successful and I put a really decent edge on it. Now with this axe handles can only go in one direction. They're skinnier towards the front and thicker towards the back. And that keeps the shape of the handle in the right direction. Also, the axe has a shape to it too. So it all is a matter of paying attention to what you're doing when you're putting it together. The handle was just a tiny bit thick, so I'm really just trying to convince it to go in there. And it's taken off some of the wood, and I just ran the chisel around the side to remove the excess wood. This is the wood wedge that came with the handle, and then that's the one I removed from the old handle, which is an aluminum wedge, and I really liked the aluminum wedge better. The only thing I was afraid of was I would not get it to go all the way down, and I didn't want it to stick up and then have to cut it off. So I decided to go ahead and risk it and go ahead and use that wedge because I just liked it so much better. I didn't have any problem. It went in fairly easily. You can see I'm tapping it while the video sped up. I tapped it quite a few times, but I just took my time so that I could watch to make sure the axe was straight. Now, to prove that it actually works, I went outside and got a log, and I'm just showing you that it's solid, it's working, it's actually cutting the wood, and it has good grip. The linseed oil is pretty dry now. It's not sticking to my hands or anything like that. But the feel of that hickory is a lot better than the feel of that plastic coating or the clear coating that was on it before. And as you see, not a problem. The axe did its job. And I think it looks really, really nice with just the shiny head on it instead of a painted one. Thanks for watching the video of the restoration of this axe. If you'd like to see more videos, please subscribe. Also, follow me on Facebook. Remember, hit the subscribe button.